We have reached our final thesis presentation for this evening. At the end of this presentation, please pause and wait for one final announcement. And without further ado, the final presentation is entitled Segregated Sunday, Racial Reconciliation Within the Church. Please welcome Noah Mestas.
Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." But 55 years later, we have seen America move from racial segregation. But 55 years later, there still has not been a sufficient resolution. 55 years later, the church thinks that we have come to reconciliation. But 55 years later, Sunday is still the most segregated day of the week. Racism is still an issue. Although you may think within the 55 years since the civil rights movement, we have come some way, we have only adapted to look at it differently. Every Sunday, we head to different churches based off of color, not because this is what they're limited to, but because this is what we have adapted to and become comfortable with. This is not the dream of Martin Luther King Jr. Racism has moved and is no longer overt, but it is covert. And it happens without us even recognizing sometimes. I believe that the American evangelical church must confront and combat racism, because racism is an intolerable moral and theological problem that the church has an inherent responsibility to confront. Racism has always been sinful. First, it corrupts the image of God, and then it separates the body of Christ. We were all made in the same image. Not some of mankind, but all of mankind was created in one image. And this image is equal, and therefore we are all equal. But racism reverses this and skews the image of God, and it becomes something that is no longer divine. The image of God is something that's immaculate, and racism perverts this and creates the image of God and lessens it to almost nothing. Racism also corrupts the belief of the body of Christ. We are all part of one church, under one God, and racism separates this and separates the body of Christ, and it hinders the whole church. If we believe this, then we believe that racism is immoral, because racism, one, doesn't look at everyone equally, nor does it value the importance of the image of God. Furthermore, it separates the body of Christ, which hinders the whole church. Since we have proven racism to be immoral, we as Christians should strive to eliminate these immoral actions and emulate the philanthropic ideals and good morals, and strive for racial reconciliation within the church. The perfect example of this in the Bible is Jesus. Jesus emulates perfection, healing of the sick, providing for the poor, and so much more for the Gentiles. He went into society to find the people who were socially marginalized, and he helped those people. This is what we are called to do. We are called to help these people that are socially marginalized, such as people of race. Jesus' perfection, philanthropy, and purpose is something we should strive for. We should strive to help the poor, to plead the widow's case. We should fight immoralities, impurities, and inequalities in our society. Some are quick to agree that racism is a big issue in America. But the resolution shouldn't come from the church. And I agree. The church isn't a place that pumps out policies to create a change in society, nor are they a place to police what people can and cannot do. But I do believe that they're a place that needs to create a society that looks more like heaven and less like sin. The church has done this with abortion, gay marriage, and other large-scale social issues. The church has taken a clear stance on these issues, and yet they have not taken a stance at all for racism. I believe that the church needs to take a clear stance on this by first recognizing that there still is racism in America and recognizing that they still need action. Then the church needs to take clear action and first start with small relationships. These small relationships will eventually turn into bigger relationships, and these bigger relationships will eventually turn into the greater reconciliation. This solution is not hard, nor is it complex. But for it to succeed, we all must come together and create a change all together. So let the church be a beacon of hope, a beacon of morality, and a beacon for society. Martin Luther King Jr. had a dream that his 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. 55 years later, we can still make that change as a church, as long as we come together and go into society and create a change together. We cannot let no secular institution or secular politician create this change for us. This change must come from the church. And so, let reconciliation ring from the altars of churches. Let reconciliation ring from the mouths of Christians. Let reconciliation ring from sea to sea across America. Let reconciliation ring everywhere high and low. Let reconciliation ring. Thank you.